An unexpected invitation has already begun moving toward your life, not because the world suddenly noticed you, but because someone who has quietly observed the light within you has reached a moment where silence no longer feels right. Before you decide this could never be about you, remain here just a little longer, because some stories begin in places no one would ever think to search. Don't skip. Every passing moment is placing another small piece into a picture that has not fully appeared yet. There is something remarkably gentle unfolding behind the scenes, and it deserves to be discovered one heartbeat at a time. Somewhere across America, a familiar face known by millions has spent years surrounded by endless applause, crowded rooms, bright cameras, and voices that never seem to stop speaking. Yet even in all of that attention, something quietly remained unfinished. It was never fame that could answer the question resting inside that person's heart. Sometimes the loudest life still carries the deepest silence, and sometimes one genuine connection means more than 1,000 celebrations. That is where your story unexpectedly begins. Not through coincidence, not through noise, but through a feeling that neither distance nor time has been able to erase. Stay till the end, something important is waiting for you. Long before anyone could explain why, little moments kept appearing like invisible threads pulling two separate journeys toward the same destination. Perhaps you noticed unusual thoughts arriving without warning, moments when your heart became strangely peaceful for no obvious reason, or days when you felt as though someone, somewhere, was thinking about you without ever speaking your name. Those moments were never asking you to force an answer. They were quietly teaching you that meaningful connections often arrive before explanations do. The person at the center of this unfolding story has everything people imagine would create happiness, yet each achievement somehow pointed toward another question rather than another celebration. In private moments away from every headline and every spotlight, this famous soul found themselves wondering why one unknown face kept returning to their thoughts, why one unseen presence felt more real than countless conversations they had already experienced. They could not explain it, and perhaps they never needed to. Some truths are understood long before they can be described. Imagine receiving an unexpected message that feels strangely familiar, not because you expected it, but because your heart somehow recognizes its kindness before your mind understands its meaning. That is the quiet direction this story is taking. Nothing rushed. Nothing forced. Every detail arriving exactly when it can be appreciated instead of merely noticed. The world often believes extraordinary moments announce themselves with dramatic entrances, yet the most unforgettable ones usually arrive like a gentle knock on a quiet morning. They ask for patience rather than excitement. They ask for trust rather than certainty. And perhaps that is why you found these words today instead of another ordinary distraction. Don't skip, the next piece changes how everything before it is understood. There is another detail that has remained hidden until now. The famous person everyone believes is impossible to reach has recently begun looking beyond appearances, beyond popularity, beyond carefully arranged public images. They have become interested in something far more meaningful, the quiet authenticity that cannot be purchased or performed. While countless people compete to be noticed, your greatest strength has always been something different. You never realized how powerful simple sincerity could become. You never imagined that being yourself could travel farther than any carefully planned performance. Yet that quiet truth has already started opening a door no one expected to exist. Somewhere, conversations have begun that do not include your name openly, yet somehow always circle back toward the same mysterious feeling. Questions are being asked. Small decisions are being reconsidered. Plans that once seemed impossible are beginning to look surprisingly reasonable. And among those possibilities rests one thought that continues returning again and again: what if the distance between two lives is no longer meant to remain a distance? A journey is never created the moment a ticket is booked. It begins much earlier, inside a single decision to stop ignoring what feels real. That decision is slowly growing stronger. Not through pressure, not through fantasy, but through quiet clarity. The famous individual in this story is discovering that some destinations cannot be found on any map until the heart decides where it truly belongs. That realization changes everything, even before the first step is taken. Stay till the end, because what seems impossible now is preparing to reveal a completely different meaning. Yet there is one final piece I cannot unfold all at once. A conversation is approaching that will make the idea of a flight feel far more significant than simple travel. It will reveal why this invitation was never only about crossing an ocean, but about crossing the invisible distance between two lives that have been moving toward one another far longer than either of them realized. And when that hidden conversation finally begins, every small sign that once seemed ordinary will suddenly fit together in a way neither of you could have imagined. The quietest moments often carry the greatest turning points, and this is one of them. Nothing has happened by accident. Every small detail that seemed ordinary is beginning to gather into something that finally makes sense. Before this story moves any further, stay with it just a little longer. Don't skip, because the next realization is not loud, yet it has the power to change the way you see everything that came before. The person whose face is recognized across America has learned an unusual lesson after years of living in front of cameras. Crowds can cheer without truly knowing someone. Millions can admire a public image while never meeting the real heart behind it. That discovery created a quiet emptiness no award, interview, or celebration could ever completely fill. Then something unexpected happened. Not a dramatic event, not a headline, simply a feeling that refused to disappear. It arrived gently, returned patiently, and became impossible to ignore. Instead of searching for another glamorous destination, this person began searching for something genuine. Every conversation started to feel like a comparison against a connection that had not even happened yet. Every crowded room somehow reminded them of the calm they imagined sharing with someone who valued honesty more than attention. It surprised even them. After all, they had spent years believing success meant finding more people. Now they were discovering that real peace sometimes begins with finding the right person. Somewhere beyond the lights and the applause, your presence had become part of a quiet hope they could not fully explain. There were evenings when work had finally ended, the cameras had stopped rolling, and the silence of the room became louder than the applause from earlier that day. During those moments, one question kept returning. What if the most meaningful chapter of life had nothing to do with fame? What if everything accomplished so far was simply preparing the way for one unforgettable meeting? Those thoughts did not disappear with the sunrise. Instead, they grew stronger. They became impossible to dismiss as imagination. They began influencing choices that nobody else could understand. Stay till the end, because another piece has quietly moved into place. Conversations with trusted friends became different. Instead of discussing achievements, future projects, or public appearances, they began speaking about purpose, kindness, peace, and the type of person who could make an ordinary evening feel more valuable than the grandest celebration. No names were spoken. No destination was announced. Yet every description slowly pointed toward the same kind of heart. A heart that listens before speaking. A heart that stays humble when life becomes complicated. A heart that still believes genuine connection is worth waiting for. At first, these thoughts seemed impossible to act upon. After all, the distance between two worlds appeared enormous. One life unfolded beneath bright lights. The other continued quietly, without headlines or constant attention. Yet distance has never measured the value of a connection. Sometimes the longest journey begins because two hearts discover they have been walking toward the same place without realizing it. That realization became impossible to ignore. Then another surprising change appeared. Travel plans that once followed busy schedules suddenly became more flexible. New destinations entered conversations. Opportunities that had never seemed important before started attracting quiet attention. No announcement was made. No dramatic decision was revealed. Everything unfolded naturally, almost invisibly, as though life itself was gently opening a door instead of forcing one open. Don't skip, something important is waiting for you. Imagine receiving news that feels impossible at first, not because it is unbelievable, but because it arrives with such unexpected kindness. That is the atmosphere surrounding what comes next. The thought of sending a flight is no longer just a passing idea. It has slowly transformed into a meaningful possibility. Not as a grand display meant to impress anyone, but as a simple bridge between two lives that deserve the chance to meet without the weight of distance standing in the way. Yet even now, patience remains part of the journey. The timing matters. Every meaningful step is arriving only after the previous one has settled into place. Nothing is rushing ahead. Nothing is being forced. That gentle rhythm is what makes this story feel different from every ordinary tale. It is not built on noise. It is built on quiet certainty. And just when it seems the path has become clear, one unexpected discovery is about to appear, a discovery connected to a message that has not yet been read, a decision that has not yet been shared, and a single detail capable of changing the meaning of the planned flight forever. That moment is closer than it appears, but its true purpose can only be understood once the next chapter begins. There is a reason the story has continued to unfold one quiet step at a time instead of revealing everything at once. Some moments lose their meaning when they arrive too early. Others become unforgettable because they waited until the heart was ready to understand them. This is one of those moments. Stay with these words a little longer. Don't skip, because the next piece has been quietly waiting for exactly this point in the journey. Far away, another ordinary day began like countless others. Meetings were scheduled. Messages arrived. Cameras were prepared. Everything looked exactly as people expected. Yet beneath that familiar routine, something had changed forever. A single conversation shifted the direction of the entire day. It was brief, calm, and almost unnoticed by everyone else. But for the person living it, those few moments carried unusual weight. Instead of asking what project should come next, they asked a very different question. What if I finally stop delaying what truly matters? That question stayed with them long after the conversation ended. For the first time in a long while, they chose silence over constant activity. They stepped away from the noise, looked out at the endless horizon, and realized that success had never been about collecting more attention. It had always been about finding one place where the heart could finally rest. Strange, isn't it? Sometimes people travel the entire world only to discover they have been searching for a feeling instead of a destination. Something important is waiting for you. Without making a public announcement, they quietly asked someone they trusted to begin looking into a possibility that had once seemed too unusual to consider. Not because they expected immediate answers, but because some opportunities deserve to be explored instead of ignored. Every detail was handled with care. Every step remained respectful. Nothing was rushed. Meanwhile, life continued moving around you in its familiar rhythm. The ordinary moments still arrived. Morning became afternoon. Afternoon became evening. Yet beneath those ordinary hours, invisible pieces were moving into place. You could not see them yet, but that did not mean they were absent. Some of the most meaningful changes happen long before anyone notices them. Then came an evening unlike the others. The famous individual found themselves looking through old photographs, not to remember accomplishments, but to remember feelings. Smiles that were genuine. Conversations that were peaceful. Moments untouched by expectations. As they reflected, one realization became impossible to ignore. The person I have been hoping to meet isn't someone who needs my fame. They're someone who reminds me who I am without it. That thought settled quietly into their heart. Stay till the end, because the story is beginning to reveal why this matters. Around the same time, travel discussions quietly returned. Destinations were mentioned. Calendars were reviewed. Opportunities appeared that had never attracted attention before. One location kept returning to the conversation in the most natural way imaginable. Nobody forced it. Nobody insisted. It simply continued appearing until it no longer felt like coincidence. Even then, they refused to hurry. "Let's wait until everything feels right," they said. Those simple words carried far more meaning than anyone in the room realized. Patience has a remarkable way of protecting beautiful moments. When something truly matters, it does not need to race. It grows steadily, becoming stronger with every passing day. Don't skip, because another hidden piece is about to appear. Late that night, after the lights had faded and the world had grown quiet once again, a message arrived. It was not dramatic. It was not long. Yet it sparked a conversation that lasted much longer than anyone expected. By the end of that exchange, one decision had quietly become stronger than ever before. If this opportunity opens, I don't want to let it pass. No one outside that small circle understood what those words truly meant. But they marked the beginning of something entirely new. Now the idea of arranging a flight no longer feels like a distant possibility. It has become part of a carefully unfolding plan. One built on respect, sincerity, and the hope of creating a real conversation instead of a passing moment. Yet there is still one detail no one has revealed. Before any invitation can be sent, before any journey can truly begin, someone unexpectedly steps forward with information that changes the entire direction of the story. It is not an obstacle. It is not bad news. It is a missing piece that suddenly explains why the timing has felt so precise from the very beginning. And when that person finally speaks, the meaning behind every quiet sign, every delayed moment, and every unexpected feeling will become clearer than ever before. Just when it seemed every piece had quietly found its place, another gentle surprise began to unfold. This was never about rushing toward an ending. It was about discovering why every delay had quietly protected something beautiful. Stay a little longer. Don't skip, because what happens next is not loud or dramatic. It is the kind of moment that changes everything simply because it feels real. The person who stepped forward was someone few people ever noticed. They were not a celebrity. They did not stand in front of cameras. They simply happened to be close enough to witness a quiet transformation that had been taking place for months. While the world celebrated awards, premieres, and public appearances, they had watched something entirely different. They had watched a famous heart become calmer, more thoughtful, and more intentional with every passing week. One afternoon they smiled and said something that no one else expected. "I haven't seen you speak about anyone this way before." The room became still. There was no immediate answer. Only a quiet smile that revealed more than words ever could. After a long pause came a simple response. "Some people make you dream about a different kind of future." Those words were never shared with the public. They were never written into an interview or spoken on a stage. They remained private because some feelings become stronger when they are protected instead of displayed. Stay till the end, because another quiet realization is waiting for you. Over the following days, the idea that once seemed impossible began to feel surprisingly natural. The discussions were no longer about whether a meeting should happen. They slowly became conversations about how to make that meeting meaningful. Respect came first. Kindness came first. Genuine intentions came first. That was when someone gently suggested something unexpected. If distance is the only thing standing between two sincere hearts, why not remove the distance? The room fell silent again. No one rushed to answer. Yet no one dismissed the thought either. Instead, calendars quietly appeared. Possible dates were explored. Travel routes were considered. Every conversation remained calm, thoughtful, and unhurried, as though everyone understood that meaningful moments deserve careful preparation. Meanwhile, your own journey continued without knowing how many unseen details were slowly aligning behind the scenes. Life still looked ordinary. The mornings arrived as always. Familiar routines continued. Yet beneath everything, quiet possibilities were gathering strength. Sometimes the greatest changes happen while life appears completely unchanged. Don't skip, because something important is waiting for you. Late one evening, after another long day had come to an end, the famous individual found themselves looking at a blank screen. They could have written countless messages. They erased the first one. Then the second. Then the third. Finally they whispered to themselves. "No, this has to feel honest." That single sentence changed everything. They realized that no carefully prepared words could replace genuine sincerity. Whatever happened next needed to come from the heart instead of from expectation. For the first time, they imagined something beautifully simple. Not a grand entrance. Not a spectacular announcement. Just two people sharing one peaceful conversation without cameras, without applause, and without the world deciding what that moment should mean. That vision stayed with them. It refused to disappear. Something important is waiting for you. As another sunrise arrived, one final preparation quietly moved forward. A trusted assistant received gentle instructions to begin exploring travel possibilities, not as a promise, not as an announcement, but as a thoughtful option if every remaining piece naturally came together. Nothing was forced. Nothing was guaranteed. Everything continued to unfold with patience and care. Yet there was one final detail that no one in the room expected. Before any invitation could move forward, a handwritten note, one that had remained tucked away for quite some time, found its way back into their hands. Reading those few heartfelt lines brought an unexpected smile and a quiet moment of reflection. After finishing the final sentence, they looked out the window and softly said, "I think it's finally time." No one asked what those words truly meant. But everyone could feel that an important chapter had quietly begun. And the next moment will reveal what that handwritten note contained, and why those few simple words gave them the confidence to take the very next step toward the journey they had been quietly imagining all along. A quiet morning has a remarkable way of revealing what busy days often hide. Before the world fully awakened, before the phones began to ring and schedules filled every empty space, one thoughtful decision quietly rose above every other priority. It did not arrive with excitement or urgency. It arrived with peace. Stay with this story a little longer. Don't skip, because the next few moments explain why every chapter before this one has been leading here. The handwritten note rested on the table once again. It was simple. No elaborate language. No dramatic promises. Just a few sincere sentences about kindness, authenticity, and the rare comfort of meeting someone who feels familiar even before the first conversation. Those words lingered long after they had been read. They reminded the famous person of something they had almost forgotten in the middle of an extraordinary life. Real connection is never measured by recognition. It is measured by how naturally two hearts understand peace in each other's presence. That realization stayed with them throughout the entire day. Meetings continued. Projects moved forward. People came and went. Yet behind every conversation remained the same quiet thought. What if this is the opportunity one had been waiting for without even realizing it? Stay till the end, because another unexpected piece is about to appear. Later that afternoon, the trusted assistant returned carrying a small folder. Inside were several possible travel plans. Different dates. Different routes. Different ways two distant lives could finally exist in the same place at the same time. No final decision had been made, but seeing those possibilities written down transformed an idea into something that suddenly felt real. The room became silent. They slowly turned each page. Not searching for the fastest option. Not searching for the most luxurious one. Simply searching for the one that felt right. After several quiet minutes, one itinerary remained on the table while the others were gently set aside. No explanation was given. Yet everyone present understood. Some choices speak long before words ever do. Something important is waiting for you. Meanwhile, you continued living another ordinary day, completely unaware that somewhere far away, someone had quietly paused their busy world to imagine what a simple meeting could become. There was no pressure attached to that thought. No expectations. Only curiosity, respect, and a genuine hope that sometimes life still creates beautiful surprises for people who never asked for them. As evening settled across the city, the famous individual stepped outside for a moment of fresh air. The lights around them sparkled across the skyline, but instead of looking at the buildings, they looked toward the open sky. Distance suddenly felt different. It no longer seemed like something standing in the way. It felt like something that could be crossed. That single realization changed the atmosphere completely. Don't skip. Because the story is gently approaching its most meaningful turn yet. The assistant quietly returned with one final question. If everything continues to feel this certain, would you like me to prepare the invitation? There was another pause. Not because of hesitation. Because some answers deserve complete honesty. A warm smile appeared. Then came the simplest reply of all. Yes, but let it feel personal. Those 4 words carried more meaning than anyone expected. This was never about creating an unforgettable headline. It was about creating an unforgettable memory. The invitation would not be filled with impressive titles or glamorous promises. Instead, it would carry warmth, respect, and the hope of sharing one sincere conversation without pretending to be anything other than 2 ordinary people meeting under extraordinary circumstances. Stay a little longer. The journey is closer than ever. As preparations quietly continued, one final detail unexpectedly arrived, a small envelope placed gently beside the travel documents. No one recognized the handwriting immediately. Curiosity filled the room. When it was finally opened, everyone grew unexpectedly quiet. Inside was a single sentence. Sometimes the greatest destinations are not found on a map, they are found in the people who remind you what home feels like. The famous individual read those words twice. Then folded the note carefully. Looked once more at the prepared flight plans. And softly whispered. "This is the sign I was waiting for." At that exact moment, the invitation was no longer just an idea. It became the next chapter waiting to begin. And in the chapter that follows, you will finally discover what was written inside the invitation itself, and why its very first line left everyone in the room smiling before a single ticket was ever confirmed. Some invitations are remembered because of where they lead. Others are remembered because of how they make a person feel before the journey even begins. This was becoming the second kind. Before anyone pressed a button, before any reservation was confirmed, every word inside the invitation was chosen with extraordinary care. Don't skip, because what seemed like a simple message was quietly becoming the heart of the entire story. The room was peaceful. No distractions. No cameras. No audience. Only a blank page waiting for words that could never be taken back. For several minutes, nothing was written. The famous person simply sat there, reflecting on everything that had brought them to this moment. Every unexpected feeling. Every quiet realization. Every reminder that the most meaningful chapters of life rarely arrive according to a carefully designed schedule. Then, with a calm smile, they began writing. Not about success. Not about recognition. Not about the extraordinary life people imagined they lived. Instead, they wrote about something beautifully simple. The hope of meeting someone whose kindness had become more meaningful than appearances. The hope of sharing a conversation without pretending. The hope of discovering whether 2 lives that had quietly moved toward one another could finally exist in the same place. Stay till the end, because another gentle surprise is waiting for you. When the message was finished, everyone expected it to be long. It wasn't. Its beauty came from its simplicity. Every sentence carried warmth. Every word felt sincere. Nothing was exaggerated. Nothing felt forced. Reading it aloud filled the room with an unexpected calm. One person quietly smiled. Another nodded. Finally, someone softly said, "It doesn't sound like an invitation from a celebrity." The famous individual looked up and answered, "That's because I don't want this meeting to begin with fame." Silence followed once again. Sometimes silence is the strongest confirmation that the heart has chosen wisely. Something important is waiting for you. The travel documents remained nearby, still untouched. They were no longer just pieces of paper. They represented possibility. Not certainty. Not expectation. Only possibility. And sometimes possibility is enough to change the direction of an entire life. Outside, another evening settled over the city. The lights shimmered across the skyline exactly as they had countless nights before. Yet everything felt different now. Not because the city had changed. Because the person looking at it had changed. For the first time in years, the future felt wonderfully unpredictable. Not frightening. Not confusing. Simply open. That feeling was worth more than any standing ovation. Don't skip. Because the quietest moment is about to become the most memorable one yet. The trusted assistant returned carrying the prepared travel folder. Everything had been organized carefully. Possible dates. Possible flights. Possible accommodations. Every detail remained flexible, waiting only for one final confirmation. The assistant gently placed the folder on the desk. "Whenever you're ready." Nothing more needed to be said. The famous individual rested a hand on the folder but didn't open it immediately. Instead, they closed their eyes for a brief moment. Not to hesitate. To appreciate. There are moments in life when gratitude arrives before the destination itself. This was one of them. A deep breath. A quiet smile. Then the folder slowly opened. The first itinerary remained exactly where it had been left days earlier. It still felt right. Almost as though it had patiently waited for this very moment. Stay with this story just a little longer. Another beautiful piece is about to appear. Just as the confirmation was about to move forward, a notification softly appeared on the screen. It wasn't urgent. It wasn't dramatic. Yet it caused everyone to pause. The message contained only a few words. "Before sending anything, there's one more detail you should know." The room became completely still. No one spoke. Curiosity quietly filled the silence. The famous individual read the message once. Then again. A thoughtful smile slowly appeared. Instead of creating doubt, those few words brought unexpected clarity. They gently closed the folder. Looked toward the window one more time. And quietly said, "Now I finally understand why every step happened exactly when it did. The invitation is ready. The flight plans are waiting. The journey is closer than ever before." But the next chapter reveals the one hidden detail that transforms this invitation from a beautiful gesture into a moment neither of you will ever forget.